Before the story begins, make sure to subscribe to this channel. More terrifying tales are waiting for you here, and you don't want to miss what comes next. Turn on the notifications, and let's dive into tonight's horror. This is not just another ghost story. This is about a place I should never have entered, a place that was never meant to be touched by living hands. They call it the cabin in the woods, but the truth is, it is no cabin. It is a trap, a doorway, a thing that breathes and watches and waits. Tonight, I will tell you how I found it. Or perhaps how it found me. I grew up in a quiet town where nothing much ever happened. But everyone knew the story of the cabin. Children whispered about it on the playground, daring each other to walk into the woods at night. Teenagers used it as a test of courage. Some came back swearing they heard voices. A few never returned at all. Adults never talked about it openly, but their silence was worse than any tale. It meant there was truth in it. As a boy, I thought it was just another campfire legend. But the image stuck with me, the lonely house deep in the forest, its windows glowing faintly in the dark, waiting for someone foolish enough to step inside. Years later, when I was older, my curiosity became unbearable. I wanted to see it with my own eyes, to prove that fear was only in the mind. I armed myself with nothing more than a flashlight and a backpack. I told no one where I was going. On a gray autumn afternoon, I entered the forest. The deeper I went, the stranger the woods felt. The air grew colder, heavier, as though I had crossed an invisible line. The sounds of the world faded, no birds, no insects, no rustling leaves. The silence pressed against my ears until I could hear my own heartbeat louder than anything else. Then I saw it. The cabin stood crookedly between two skeletal oak trees, their branches bare like twisted fingers. The roof sagged, shingles rotting, but smoke drifted faintly from the chimney. That was wrong. No one lived here. No one had for decades. And yet, the smoke rose into the sky like a quiet signal, daring me to come closer. The walls were black with age, scarred with deep marks I couldn't identify, claw marks, perhaps, or carvings made by desperate hands. The windows were the worst. They were not just broken glass. They looked alive, like eyes. Empty sockets staring at me, reflecting nothing, but watching everything. My body screamed to turn back, but my feet moved forward. Each step crunched on the dead leaves, echoing far too loudly. The door stood ajar, swaying slightly, as if it had been waiting for me. Carved into the wood were words. "Do not enter." I whispered to myself that it was just vandalism, the work of some kids. But my hands trembled as I pushed the door open. The sound was deafening, a groan that seemed to come from the earth itself. The smell inside was unbearable. Rot. Damp. And beneath it, a metallic stench, sharp and unmistakable. Blood. The room was dim, dust floating in beams of gray light that seeped through the shutters. It looked ordinary at first, a table in the center, plates still set for dinner. Mold covered the food, but the arrangement was too neat, too recent, as if the family had just stepped away. 4 chairs surrounded it, one toppled over. In the corner, a rocking chair creaked gently. Moving, though no one sat in it. My flashlight trembled as I aimed it toward the sound. Empty. The whispering began then. At first, faint, like the wind in the trees. But there was no wind. The whispers grew louder, words I couldn't understand, layered voices speaking at once. They seeped through the floorboards, through the walls, from everywhere at once. I should have run. But instead, I followed. Down a narrow hallway lined with portraits. Old photographs, framed in cracked glass. Families, faces once clear but now scratched out. Every pair of eyes ruined, gouged away violently, leaving only blank shadows. I shivered as the whispers pulled me toward the last door at the end. The knob was cold as ice. I turned it. Inside was a bedroom, untouched by time. The bed was neatly made, the curtains drawn tight. On the nightstand lay a diary. The whispers stopped. The silence was suffocating. My hands shook as I opened the book. The ink was faded, but the words were clear. They come at night. The forest is alive. We are not alone in this place. I turned the page. We should not have stayed. The children hear them at the windows. They scratch at the walls. We cannot leave. The forest will not let us. Another page. If you are reading this, we are already gone. Do not stay past dark. Do not look into the mirror. My skin prickled. I glanced at the cracked mirror across the room. My reflection stared back, pale and trembling. But then, it moved. Not me. The reflection smiled. I dropped the book, stumbling backward as the door slammed shut behind me. The whispers returned, deafening, furious, shaking the very walls. The lights flickered though there was no electricity. The bed sheets twisted as if someone lay beneath them, writhing. I clawed at the door, but it wouldn't open. In the mirror, my reflection rose, though I had fallen to my knees. It stepped closer, its eyes black voids. The diary lay open at my feet. The final line burned into my mind. Once you see it, it sees you. Something cold touched my shoulder. I screamed. I don't know how long I screamed. It echoed against the wooden walls, swallowed by the endless whispering. When the sound finally died in my throat, the cabin fell silent again. Too silent. The kind of silence that isn't empty but full of pressure, like the air itself is waiting. The diary lay open at my feet. Its last words burned into me, once you see it, it sees you. I wanted to close my eyes, to convince myself none of this was real, but even with my eyes shut, I could feel it. Something behind me. Breathing. Watching. I forced myself to turn. The room was empty. Or maybe it wasn't. Shadows pooled in corners that didn't exist a moment before. The mirror across the room no longer showed me. It showed a hallway, long and endless, stretching into blackness. My body moved before my brain could stop it. I stumbled toward the door, yanking at the handle, pounding my fists against the wood. Nothing. It wouldn't budge. The air grew colder with every second, my breath fogging before my face. The mirror's image shifted. The hallway darkened until something pale emerged from the distance. A figure. It crawled toward the glass on all fours, jerky, unnatural, its head twisting at impossible angles. I froze as its hand pressed against the inside of the mirror, leaving a smear of black where its skin should have been. The whispers swelled again, so loud they rattled the boards beneath me. "Let me out," I begged. My voice cracked, pathetic in the choking darkness. And then, the door unlocked. I didn't hesitate. I bolted into the hallway, slamming it shut behind me. The portraits stared down at me again, their gouged faces twisted in the flickering light of my flashlight. Except, one of them wasn't scratched out anymore. The face of a child. Pale, wide-eyed, mouth open in a silent scream. I turned away, my heart thundering. I needed to get out. The front door was just ahead. But as I ran, the hallway stretched longer, each step pulling me further instead of closer. The cabin was shifting, bending, as if it enjoyed my panic. Finally, I crashed into the front door. I twisted the knob, shoved my shoulder against the wood, nothing. It was solid, immovable. I beat on it with both fists until my skin split, until blood smeared the rotten panels. Still nothing. Behind me, the rocking chair creaked. I spun around, and there it was. Not a person, not exactly, but a shape, long, stretched, limbs too thin, too sharp. Its face was blurred, features sliding like oil across glass, but the eyes, oh God, the eyes were pits of black that swallowed every scrap of light. It didn't walk. It didn't crawl. It simply appeared closer with every blink, every ragged breath. I stumbled backward, my hands clawing at the door. "Please," I whispered, but my voice was swallowed by the sound of wood groaning around me. The walls bent inward, closer, closer, as though the whole house wanted to crush me. Then my foot hit something. A trapdoor. It was set into the floor just beneath the toppled chair, hidden under a thin rug I hadn't noticed before. Desperate, I yanked it open. The hinges screamed, dust billowing into my face. A staircase led down into blackness, colder than the air above. Without thinking, I dove into it, slamming the hatch shut over my head. Darkness. My flashlight flickered, the beam weak against the suffocating black. The stairs went on longer than they should have, spiraling down, the air growing thicker with every step. A smell rose from below, earth, mold, and something sharper. Decay. At last, I reached the bottom. The cellar stretched out like a tunnel, walls lined with shelves. But the shelves weren't filled with jars or tools. They were filled with things that didn't belong here. A shoe, torn and muddy. A child's toy bear with its head missing. Photographs of strangers, smiling in happier times, their eyes scratched out. My stomach churned. These were trophies. Proof. People had been here before me. The whispers returned, softer now, almost coaxing. They seemed to come from deeper in the tunnel. My flashlight shook as I raised it, and that's when I saw them. Figures. dozens of them, lining the walls. Not mannequins. Not statues. People. Or what was left of them. Their skin gray, stretched tight over bone. Eyes gone, mouths frozen open. Some stood, some sat, others leaned against the walls. All of them lifeless. All of them watching. I staggered back, my throat locked in a silent scream. One of them twitched. Just a little. A finger curling. A head jerking up. Then another moved, and another, until the tunnel was alive with shifting corpses. The whispers grew louder, overlapping, words tumbling into each other until I couldn't tell if they came from the dead or from the cabin itself. I ran. The tunnel twisted, endless, each turn leading deeper instead of out. My legs burned, my chest screamed for air, but I couldn't stop. Behind me, footsteps pounded, dozens of them, out of sync, slapping the earth like broken marionettes chasing me. At last, I stumbled into a wider chamber. My flashlight caught something carved into the stone walls. Words, scratched deep and desperate. There is no exit. The ground beneath me cracked. I fell to my knees as the floor split open, revealing nothing but darkness below. From the pit rose a sound, not whispers this time but laughter. Low, guttural, ancient. It shook the walls, rattled my bones. The corpses flooded into the chamber, their faces blank, their mouths opening wider than humanly possible. And then, in unison, they spoke. You should not have come. The floor gave way. And I fell. I don't remember the moment I hit the ground. 1 second I was falling through blackness, the next I was lying on my back, staring up into a ceiling of roots and stone. My flashlight, miraculously still working, flickered weakly beside me. Every bone in my body ached, but nothing was broken. That should have been a relief, but it wasn't. Because the air was wrong down here. Heavy. Wet. Like breathing in the lungs of something alive. I forced myself to sit up, clutching the flashlight. Its beam trembled as I swept it across the cavern. The chamber was massive, stretching far beyond the reach of the light. The walls glistened as if covered in sweat. Roots dangled from above like veins, pulsing faintly, carrying something that looked disturbingly like blood. The ground beneath me was soft, not stone, not earth. Something in between. It gave slightly when I put weight on it, as if I were walking on flesh. My stomach turned, but I pushed forward. Somewhere in the distance, I heard it again. The whispering. Not words this time, but a low murmur, a chorus of breaths echoing through the cavern. It came from all directions, bouncing against the walls, impossible to pin down. I stumbled deeper, driven by equal parts terror and the desperate hope of finding a way out. After what felt like hours, my light caught on something ahead. A figure slumped against the wall. My heart leapt. I wasn't alone. Maybe another person trapped like me. I ran forward, kneeling beside them. Hey, are you okay? My voice cracked in the silence. The figure didn't move. My light revealed sunken skin stretched over bones, lips shriveled back to reveal teeth. Dead? Another one of the cabin's victims, abandoned here to rot. But then its head twitched. Slowly. Its jaw cracked open. And in a voice that was not its own, it whispered. Why did you come here? I stumbled back, my scream echoing into the cavern. The corpse shuddered, eyes snapping open. They weren't eyes at all, just hollow pits dripping black. Its limbs jerked, bones cracking, as it tried to rise. I ran. The cavern shifted around me, tunnels opening and closing like the throat of a beast. My flashlight beam darted wildly across walls that seemed to breathe. Every few steps I swore I heard movement behind me, feet slapping wetly against the ground, hands clawing at the walls. Finally, I burst into another chamber. This one was different. Torches burned in sconces along the walls, though no one was there to light them. The air stank of smoke and something worse, burnt hair, charred flesh. At the center of the chamber stood a stone altar, slick with something dark and fresh. And chained to the altar was a person. I froze. They were alive. Barely. Their chest rose and fell in ragged gasps, their skin pale, lips cracked. Their eyes flickered open at the sound of my approach. You shouldn't be here, they croaked. I rushed forward, tugging at the chains. They didn't budge. We're getting out of here. Just hold on. They shook their head weakly. No escape. It keeps us, it feeds. What does? I demanded, frantic. Their gaze shifted upward, toward the ceiling. I followed their eyes, and my blood turned to ice. The roots above us weren't roots. They were veins. And they pulsed in rhythm with a deep, steady heartbeat that shook the entire cavern. The cabin wasn't just a house. It was alive. The person coughed violently, blood spilling from their mouth. It wants you. That's why you're here. It never lets go. Suddenly, the torches guttered, shadows stretching long and sharp across the walls. The whispers returned, louder, more urgent, swirling around me like a storm. The chained figure convulsed, their back arching unnaturally. Their eyes rolled back, and in a guttural voice that was not theirs, they screamed. You belong to it now. The chain snapped. They lunged at me, their body twisted by something unseen, their jaw unhinging wider than any human should. I stumbled backward, nearly dropping the flashlight. My beam caught their face just as they collapsed onto all fours, scuttling toward me like an animal. I turned and ran, my lungs burning. Behind me, the sound of claws scraped against stone, chasing me deeper into the labyrinth. The tunnels narrowed, forcing me to crawl, the walls closing in like a throat swallowing me whole. My flashlight flickered and died. Darkness consumed me. And in that suffocating black, a voice whispered directly into my ear. We see you. I woke to darkness. Pure, suffocating darkness that pressed against my eyelids as if the night itself were alive. My flashlight was gone, fallen somewhere in the twisted tunnels below the cabin. Panic clawed at me, but I forced myself to stand. Every step I took echoed through the cavern like a drumbeat in a tomb. I could hear nothing else, and that silence was worse than screams. The air smelled of rot and wet stone. Somewhere far off, a soft scraping echoed, rhythmic and deliberate, like claws moving across metal. My throat tightened as my eyes strained in the black. I could feel it watching, waiting, anticipating my next move. I stumbled along the uneven ground, fingers brushing against walls that were slick, almost alive. The veins of roots above pulsed faintly, keeping time with the distant heartbeat I had sensed before. The sensation was dizzying, hypnotic, as if the cabin itself were drawing me in, pulling me deeper into its labyrinth. I came to a fork in the tunnel. Left led downward into thicker darkness, narrower passages that seemed to swallow sound. Right led to a faint glow, torchlight flickering against walls that should not have held fire. The whispers returned, louder now, overlapping, voices overlapping voices. They were not human, not entirely. Some spoke, others moaned, others simply hummed in a low, vibrating frequency that made my teeth ache. I chose the right path. The corridor stretched endlessly. The light ahead revealed more figures. Not the pale corpses of before, but something older, twisted by time, more cunning. Limbs elongated, faces blurred and melting, eyes ever watchful. They shifted slightly when I looked away, their movement subtle, predatory. I passed them cautiously, careful not to make a sound. But then the walls themselves began to move. Stone and wood pulsed beneath my touch, corridors stretching and bending. I realized then that the cabin was alive, not just a structure, but a predator. And I was its prey. Ahead, a door appeared, carved with symbols I did not understand. I felt drawn to it, though every instinct screamed to run. The whispers became words I could understand. You belong here, you belong to us. I pressed my palm to the door. It was warm, alive, vibrating beneath my skin. My heartbeat matched the pulsing around me. And then the door opened of its own accord. Inside, a room like none I had seen before. The ceiling arched impossibly high, disappearing into shadows. The floor seemed liquid, rippling as I stepped, yet firm enough to hold me. In the center, a pedestal, and atop it a mirror taller than any human. My reflection appeared, but wrong. Eyes black, limbs slightly distorted, skin pale and thin. It moved independently, mimicking some of my gestures but exaggerating them in grotesque ways. I stumbled backward. The whispers grew to a roar, surrounding me, speaking at once in languages I had never known. My reflection smiled. Its mouth stretched impossibly wide. And in that instant, I understood, the cabin could remake you, bend you, twist your essence until you became part of it. I turned to flee. The floor rippled violently, knocking me off my feet. Figures emerged from the shadows, humanoid, in part, but their forms were wrong, shifting, twisting as if they were trying to reach into me. I ran blindly, hands scraping the walls, my ears ringing with voices chanting my name. I came upon another corridor, but it was different. The walls were lined with doors, hundreds of them, each door unique, each emitting a faint glow. The whispers guided me, pulling me toward one in particular. I reached for the handle. Cold metal. A pulse beneath my palm, like a heartbeat. I opened it. The room inside was empty. Or it should have been. But the air smelled of my own fear. And in the center, a chair sat facing the door. On it, a figure curled, shaking, naked and thin. As I approached, the figure raised its head. It was me. Or something that had been me. Eyes black, lips peeled back, smiling. I stumbled backward, nearly falling. The whispers swelled, chanting in rhythm with the pulsing veins of the ceiling. My body felt heavy, my thoughts slowing. The mirror, the reflection, the cabin, they were all connected. It wanted me to join, to surrender, to become part of its endless hunger. I ran again, blindly down twisting corridors. The walls grew narrower, the ceiling lower, the air thicker. Figures reached from the shadows, touching, grasping. Not killing, not yet, but claiming. I screamed, pounding fists, kicking, but the corridors would not end. Finally, I stumbled into a chamber that looked like a throne room. In the center, a figure sat, impossibly tall, wrapped in shadows, pulsating like the cabin itself. Its presence was absolute, suffocating. And when it spoke, the sound was everywhere at once. "You are mine." The whispers became screams. The floor beneath me gave way again, plunging me into darkness. But this time, I did not land. I fell endlessly, twisting, spinning through corridors that should not exist, walls stretching and folding, until my mind could no longer hold the distinction between cabin, shadow, and self. Somewhere, deep in the black, I heard laughter. Not human. Not living. It was the cabin. Alive, hungry, eternal. And it knew I was here. I could not escape. I fell for what felt like hours, tumbling through endless darkness. My body screamed, my mind thrashed, but the blackness did not end. The whispers followed, wrapping around my thoughts, pressing into every corner of my consciousness. They were no longer distant voices, they were inside me, burrowing into my memory, twisting my fear into something tangible. Eventually, I landed, though landed is a relative term. The ground beneath me was soft and alive, pulsing slightly as if it had been waiting for me. I rose on trembling legs, flashlight still dead, heart pounding in rhythm with the living floor. Around me, corridors stretched impossibly, twisting and spiraling into forms that made no sense. Stone, wood, and roots merged with flesh in places, and everywhere the walls pulsed with the heartbeat of the cabin. I stumbled through the corridors, guided by whispers that alternated between pleading and mocking. I passed doors that opened into rooms filled with impossible visions, one with ceilings that descended to crush you, another with walls dripping black liquid that smelled faintly of iron, another filled entirely with mirrors, each reflection distorted, some watching me, some moving independently. The whispers began forming words I could understand: feed it, become it, belong. I screamed in defiance and ran. I came to a wider chamber, dimly lit by an eerie phosphorescent glow emanating from veins that ran along the ceiling and walls. Figures moved within it, creatures that were once human. Their flesh stretched, their bones warped, their eyes black voids. Yet they moved with intent, aware, hunting. One lifted a hand toward me, the long fingers curling, nails like shards of glass. I ran past, breathing heavily, trying to memorize paths that shifted as I moved. Every turn brought new horrors. Shadows elongated, ceilings dropped, walls curved. I stumbled into another corridor lined with doors, hundreds, maybe thousands. Each one pulsated faintly, as if it had a heartbeat. And the whispers came from them all. I chose a door at random. Inside was a room filled with books and papers, all scattered. The floorboards were slick with black sap that seemed almost alive. I picked up a book and blew off the dust. The pages were filled with writings I couldn't fully comprehend, notes, diagrams, and drawings of the cabin itself. But some of the figures in the drawings moved, shifted on the page. And then I realized, the cabin wasn't just alive. It was intelligent. It had purpose. It was aware of me. I tried to leave the room, but the door had disappeared. Panic surged. The ceiling began to descend slowly, roots stretching down like fingers reaching for me. I leapt aside, feeling them brush against my back, cold and clammy. The whispers turned into screams, urgent, chaotic, chanting my name over and over. I moved blindly, hands trailing along walls that pulsed and throbbed. A door appeared ahead. I burst through it and found myself in a vast hall, filled with more figures, living, dead, something in between. They advanced silently, but I could feel their hunger, the way the cabin fed on them, and now it wanted me. The hall twisted impossibly. Stairs spiraled upward and downward simultaneously. I ran up, only to find myself back at the starting point. I ran down, and it led me deeper into blackness. The whispers were relentless: join us. Feed us. Belong. Then I heard another sound. Faint, weak, human. A voice crying for help. I followed it, and it led me to a small chamber, walls slick and breathing, where a person was chained to the floor. Their eyes were sunken, lips cracked, but they recognized me. You are awake. They are hungry. It feeds on fear. Don't let it consume you. I tried to free them, but the chains were like living iron, twisting and tightening with every touch. I was running out of time. The whispering grew louder, closer, nearly deafening. Shadows detached themselves from walls and floor, coalescing into forms that lunged at me from all directions. I grabbed the person and ran blindly. The floor beneath me pulsated violently, sending me stumbling forward. Figures emerged from the darkness, but I couldn't stop. I could feel the cabin reacting, its hunger intensifying. It was alive, aware, and it wanted me to surrender. I stumbled into another corridor. The walls were lined with mirrors. My reflection appeared, but not as I was. I saw myself twisted, eyes black, mouth stretched, limbs elongated. And then it smiled. My heart sank. The cabin was showing me what I would become if I gave in. The whispers became a chant: belong. 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 I ran, faster than I thought possible, past the mirrors, past the living walls, past the grotesque figures. I didn't know where I was going. I only knew I had to keep moving, had to resist. And then I heard a voice. Clear, human. This way. I turned, barely daring to hope, and saw a faint glow from a doorway. Shadows reached for me, hands clawing, but I dove through, pulling the person with me. The door closed behind us, and for the first time, I felt a momentary sense of relief. But the whispers did not stop. They followed. The doorway closed behind us with a soft, final click. For a moment, I thought we were safe. I dared to breathe, to feel the relief of momentary respite. The person I had dragged along was slumped against the wall, shaking, murmuring prayers under their breath. But the darkness surrounding us was alive. I could feel it pressing in, bending the space, distorting reality. The cabin wasn't just walls and corridors anymore. It was a labyrinth, a living maze designed to trap and consume. We moved forward slowly, each step measured, each breath sharp in the heavy air. My hands ran along walls that pulsed like veins, slick and warm. Occasionally, I touched the floor. It shifted beneath my feet, soft and pliable as if it were breathing. The whispers began again, low at first, teasing, then louder, mocking, calling my name, calling the name of the person I had saved. This way, the person whispered, but their voice trembled. The cabin, it changes. It can read your fear. Don't let it see you give in. I nodded, though my mind was fraying. Every corridor looked the same. Every door led to a different nightmare. Shadows slithered along walls and ceilings, detaching themselves to observe us, to toy with us. Figures emerged from the darkness, grotesque forms that resembled humans yet were twisted, broken, warped beyond recognition. Some had limbs that bent the wrong way, others had faces with missing features or extra eyes, mouths stitched shut. I could feel them following, pacing just behind us, always in the corners of my vision. I tried to run, but the corridors stretched infinitely. Every turn brought us back to the same room, the same hallway, the same stairwell that seemed to spiral endlessly both up and down at once. Time had no meaning here. Fear became a living thing inside my chest, feeding the whispers that now screamed, belong, belong, belong. We came to a wide chamber. The ceiling arched impossibly high, woven with roots and veins that pulsed with a dim, sickly glow. In the center, a platform rose slightly above the floor, surrounded by shallow pools of dark, reflective liquid. The pools rippled as if something underneath moved, and faint whispers came from them. I stepped closer, the person beside me trembling. A voice came from the center, resonant and ancient. You are here. You have walked the paths. You have survived, so far. Will you belong? I froze. The figure in the center was immense, taller than anything human, wrapped in shadows that seemed to writhe and pulse. Its face was obscured, but its presence radiated hunger, intelligence, malice. The pools of liquid reflected our images, but they weren't right. My reflection had eyes that weren't mine, hands that stretched unnaturally, skin that seemed to melt into shadow. I could feel the cabin tightening its hold on us, the air thickening, every breath a struggle. The floor beneath the platform shifted. Figures rose from the liquid, humanoid but broken, eyes hollow, reaching toward us with hands that were sharp and thin. Their whispers became screams. The person I had saved grabbed my arm. "We must go, now. There's a passage behind the platform, but it's guarded. We have no choice." I followed, crawling and leaping over the hands that reached from the pools. The platform seemed endless. I lost track of the figures I had dodged. The whispers were now inside my skull, chanting, mocking, guiding my fear, turning it against me. At last, we reached the back of the platform. A hidden door, carved into stone, pulsed faintly. The person pushed it open. Darkness yawned beyond. "This is the only way," they said. We stepped through. The passage beyond was narrow, walls slick with something warm and sticky. The whispers followed, closer now, tasting our fear, savoring it. I felt the floor shift beneath my feet, and a tendril of black root shot out, wrapping around my ankle. I yanked free, almost falling, and we stumbled forward. Suddenly, the corridor opened into a cavern larger than any before. The ceiling vanished into darkness. The floor was littered with objects, broken furniture, shattered mirrors, toys, and remnants of previous explorers. Among them, figures crouched or leaned, broken and pale, eyes empty, watching us. Some lifted their heads and hissed, others just stared silently, yet their presence pressed upon us, heavy and oppressive. From the far side of the cavern, a soft, pulsating glow. The whispers converged there, guiding us. We ran toward it, and the closer we got, the more the wall seemed to constrict. Roots and veins reached for us, grasping, curling. The shadows behind us surged forward, figures emerging from the dark pools along the floor. The platform was behind us now, far away. Its massive guardian figure moved as if aware of our flight, extending shadows, tendrils reaching for us. Every step was a struggle, the air thick with fear, every breath sharp, every heartbeat synchronized with the cabin's pulse. We reached the glow. It was a door, small, carved of old wood but emanating faint light. The whispers shifted, pleading, tempting, threatening. I hesitated for a fraction of a second, feeling the cabin's hunger press against me, trying to draw me back, trying to claim me. "Go," the person urged. "Don't think. Don't hesitate. It will take you if you stop." I pushed them through first, then followed. Hands reached for us from the shadows, scraping along walls, dragging claws, brushing our skin. The doorway narrowed, and we burst through into a narrow corridor of stone. The whispers faded slightly, replaced by a dripping sound, slow and deliberate, like something bleeding. For the first time in what felt like eternity, I felt distance between us and the horrors. But I knew the cabin was still alive behind us, watching, waiting. It wasn't finished. It never would be finished. And as I stumbled forward, I realized, the journey was far from over. The corridor narrowed to a suffocating width, walls slick and pulsing as if alive. My heart hammered in rhythm with the cabin's relentless pulse. The person I had dragged along stumbled beside me, gasping for breath, but neither of us dared stop. Every step echoed with whispers, now frantic, insistent, clawing at my mind. The cabin's labyrinth was fighting back. Walls stretched, ceilings dropped, and shadows writhed in corners that should have held nothing. Figures emerged, humanoid, broken, and malformed. They reached for us with hands that bent impossibly, faces twisted into grotesque smiles. Their eyes, black voids, followed my every movement, reflecting my fear. "Keep moving," I urged the person beside me. "Don't stop. Don't look back." The passage curved endlessly, and the floor beneath us began to pulse more violently. The air grew thicker, heavier, making every breath a struggle. The whispers rose to a deafening chorus, "Belong, belong, belong." Then, a flash of light ahead. Faint, flickering, yet unmistakably real. A door. Possibly the final exit. I surged forward, pulling the person with me. Behind us, the shadows accelerated, tendrils of black reaching, grasping, trying to claim us. We reached the door. My hands trembled as I pushed. The hinges groaned like tortured metal, but the door opened. A cool, clean air rushed through. I stumbled forward, almost collapsing, and emerged into the night. The forest. The stars. The moonlight. I was outside. Free. Or so I thought. The person beside me slumped to the ground, sobbing. We made it," they whispered. Their eyes were wide, hollow, yet alive. For a fleeting moment, relief washed over me. But the whispers did not stop. From the tree-line, the cabin loomed. It looked small, innocent, as if it had been nothing more than an abandoned wooden structure. But I knew better. I had seen inside. I had felt it. It was alive. It had watched me. It had learned from me. And it would wait. My flashlight flickered weakly in my backpack. I reached for it, shaking. Shadows moved at the edge of the woods, just beyond the reach of the moonlight. My mind screamed at me to run, to never stop. And yet, the air carried a faint pulse, a heartbeat that seemed to echo from the earth itself. The cabin was still alive, still hungry. I glanced at the person beside me. "We need to go far," I said. "It will follow if we linger." We ran, stumbling through the underbrush, branches clawing at our faces, roots tripping us, but we did not stop. Behind us, I could hear a low, guttural rumble, not quite a voice, not quite a sound, like the cabin itself had shifted, rising, stretching, reaching toward us. Hours passed. Or maybe minutes. Time had no meaning. The forest seemed endless, yet each step took us farther from the cabin. Occasionally, I would glance behind, half expecting to see shadows moving, figures emerging, but the cabin remained distant, its form deceptively small under the moonlight. Finally, we reached the edge of the forest. Open fields, the scent of grass, the sound of wind instead of whispers. The person beside me fell to their knees, gasping, shaking. I leaned against a tree, trying to catch my breath. We were alive. Somehow, we had survived. But deep inside, I knew the truth. The cabin had not let go. It would never let go. It was patient. Eternal. And one day, it would claim another wanderer, another curious soul, just as it had almost claimed me. I looked back one last time. The forest was still, silent, waiting. The cabin was hidden among the trees, appearing abandoned to anyone who saw it from the outside. But I knew better. I had seen its depths. I had felt its hunger. And the whispers would follow me forever. I turned away, walking into the night, into the unknown, knowing that the terror was not over, it was merely waiting. Waiting for the next soul foolish enough to enter the woods. Waiting to live again. And in my chest, I still felt it, the pulse. The heartbeat of the cabin. Beating in time with mine. The forest swallowed us completely. And somewhere, deep in its heart, the cabin watched, smiled, and waited.